Hello, Brobs. One of the YouTube channels that I follow is a devotee of Clarice Lispector and speaks in passionate of the author who was Ukrainian born but then emigrated to Brazil and lived elsewhere and finally ended up in the United States, etc., etc. But no one cares what I have to say. This is a free copy of Near to the Wild Heart that I found on Internet Archive. I'm not even going to do an introduction, year, any of that stuff. Let's get right into it. I got to work today, so I can't fool around. The father. Daddy's typewriter was tapping out tack, 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 tack. The clock chimed brightly, ting, 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 ting. The silence dragged out, zzz. The wardrobe was saying what? Close, close, close. No, no. Between the clock, the typewriter, and the silence, there was an ear listening out, large, fresh pink, and dead. All right, I already botched this. Daddy's typewriter was tapping out, tack, 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 tack. The clock chimed brightly, ting, 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 ting. The silence dragged out, zzz. The wardrobe was saying, what? Close, close, close. No, no. Between the clock, the typewriter, and the silence, there was an ear listening out, large, flesh pink, and dead. The three sounds were connected by the light of day and by the rustling of tiny leaves on the tree as they joyfully rubbed against each other. Resting her head against the cold, shiny window pane, she looked into the neighbor's yard, at the great world of the chickens that did not know they were about to die, and as if it were right under her nose, she could smell the warm, beaten earth, so fragrant and dry, where she knew perfectly well that some worm or other lay squirming before being devoured by the hen that humans were going to eat. There was a grand moment, motionless and quite hollow inside. She opened her eyes wide and waited. Nothing happened. Blank. But suddenly, with a shudder, they wound up the day and they began to function once again. The typewriter tapping, father's cigarette giving off smoke, silence, tiny leaves, plucked chickens, brightness, things restored to life, and as impatient as a kettle on the boil. All that was missing was the ting-ting of the clock, which gave so much pleasure. She closed her eyes, pretended to hear it chime, and to the rhythm of that imaginary music, she went up on the tips of her toes. She executed 3 dance steps, so light and ethereal. Then suddenly she looked at everything with displeasure, as if she had eaten far too much of that concoction. Hey, 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 she murmured wearily, and then thought to herself, what will happen now? And in the fraction of time that followed, nothing ever happened if she went on waiting for something to happen, if you get my meaning. She pushed away this awkward thought, distracting herself with a movement of her bare foot on the dusty wooden floor. She rubbed her foot, looking sideways at her father, awaiting his impatient and nervous smile. But nothing happened. Nothing. It's difficult to suck in people like the vacuum cleaner does. Daddy, I've invented a poem. What is it called? The Sun and I. Then almost at once she recited, the chickens in the yard have gobbled 2 worms, but I didn't see them. Really, what do you and the sun have to do with poetry? She looked at him for an instant. He had not understood. The sun is above my worms, Daddy, and I wrote my poem and didn't see the worms. Pause. I can make up another poem this very minute. Oh, sun, come play with me. Here's a longer one. I saw a tiny cloud, poor little worm. I don't think she saw it. Those are pretty verses, my little one, very pretty. How does one compose such a charming poem? It isn't difficult, you simply say it out loud. She had already dressed her doll. She had already undressed it. She had imagined it going to a party where it stood out among the other baby dolls. A blue car ran over Arlette's body and killed her. Then the fairy appeared, and her doll was restored to life. The baby doll, the fairy, the blue car were none other than Joanna. Otherwise, the game would be rather dull. She always found some means of casting herself in the main role, as some turn of events highlighted one or other of the characters. She took the game seriously, working in silence, her arms hanging at her sides. She didn't need to get close to Arlete in order to play with her. Even from a distance, she possessed things. She amused herself with the paper cutouts. She looked at them for a moment, and each cutout was a pupil. Joanna was the teacher, the one good, the other bad. Yes, yes, and so what? And now, and nothing ever happened if she, that's right. She invented a little man the size of her index finger, with long trousers and a bow tie. She carried him in the pocket of her school uniform. The little man was a real gem, a diamond in a cravat. He had a deep voice and would say from inside her pocket, "Your Royal Highness, Jonah, pray lend me your ear for one moment. I beseech you to interrupt your constant labors just for one moment." And then he declared, "I am at your service, dear princess. Whatever you command, I am prepared to do." "Daddy, what can I do?" "Go and read your books." "I've read them." "Go and play then." "I have been playing." "Then don't bother me." She twirled round and came to a halt, watching without curiosity the walls and ceiling. As they went round and fell apart, she walked on tiptoe, only treading on the dark floorboard. She closed her eyes and moved forward, her hands outstretched until she bumped into some piece of furniture. Between her and the objects there was something, but when she caught that thing in her hand like a fly and then looked, however much care she took not to let anything escape, all she found was her own hand, rosy and disheartened. Yes, I know it was air. I know it was air, but that didn't help. That didn't explain anything. This was one of her secrets. She would never permit herself to confide, even to Daddy, that she was unable to catch the thing. Everything that really mattered was precisely what she found herself unable to confide. She only talked nonsense to people. When she told Ruth, for example, some of her secrets, she became furious with Ruth. The best thing was surely to keep one's mouth shut. Another thing, if she felt some pain and she looked at the hands of the clock while that pain was troubling her, she would then notice that the minutes counted on the clock were passing while the pain went on hurting. Or else, even when it didn't hurt her in the slightest, if she stood in front of the clock staring at it, what she was not feeling was also greater than the minutes counted on the clock. Now, when she experienced some happiness or rage, she would run to the clock and observe the seconds in vain. She went to the window, traced the cross on the windowsill, and spat out in a straight line. If she were to spit once more, now she would have to wait until nighttime. The disaster could be avoided, and God would be so good to her. But so good that what? "Daddy, what can I do?" "I've already told you, go and play and leave me in peace." "But I've been playing already, honestly." Daddy smiled. "But there's no end to playing." "Yes, there is." "Make up another game." "I don't want to play or read my books." "What do you want to do then?" Joanna thought carefully. "I can't think of anything." "Do you want to fly?" her father asked her, his mind elsewhere. "No," replies Joanna. Pause. "What can I do?" This time Daddy explodes. "Go and knock your head against the wall." She goes off, twisting her lank hair into a plait. "Never, never, never. Yes, yes," she sings in a low voice. She has learned to plait her hair just recently. She goes to her little table where she keeps her books, plays with them, glancing at them from afar. Housewife, husband, children, green is for man, white is for woman. Red could be son or daughter, is never man or woman. Why is never neither son nor daughter? And what about yes? Oh, there were so many things that were quite impossible. She could spend whole afternoons just thinking. For example, who uttered for the very first time the word never? Daddy finished his work and goes off to find her sitting in a chair and weeping. "What's this, child?" He lifts her into his arms, calmly examining her little face, flushed and mournful. "What's this?" "I've nothing to do." "Never, never, yes, yes." Everything was like the noise of the tram before dozing off, until one feels a little frightened and falls asleep. The mouth of the typewriter had closed like that of an old woman, but something was pressing on her heart like the noise of the tram, only she was not about to go to sleep. It was Daddy's embrace. Her father muses for an instant, But no one can do anything for others. We can only help ourselves. The child is so restless, so thin and precocious. Her breathing comes in bursts. She moves her head back and forth. A tiny egg. That's it. A tiny living egg. What is to become of Joanna? My God. Sounded like a Sylvia Plath daydream while her head was in the oven. Not overly impressed. In fact, I think it's kind of juvenile, but there you go. Such is the fashion of modern writing. And mind you, this is approximately 80 years old. This book. Goodbye, bros. Goodbye.